I'm here with Doc Janssen and the Watch Your Back racing team, Super V Limited. Doc, we have a lot of interesting racers here on the superboat circuit. None probably more interesting than what you do off the race course. Tell us exactly what you do, because you are a busy man.
Well, I love this hobby, but my real profession is I'm a physician in Denver, and I've been there for over 20 years. I'm a board-certified orthopedic surgeon and specializing in trauma. But for the last dozen and a half years, I specialize in spine surgery. I treat patients with spine fractures, spine tumors. I've treated a lot of racers and people on crews, but I've been in practice in Denver with that as my primary profession for a number of years. I also have a great hobby that I manage and run a resort in Saratoga, Wyoming. And that's why one time we had a boat called the Saratoga Stampede. We run a brewery there with 9 microbeers. I manage 50 rooms, a golf course, a lot of snowmobiling. So I have my fingers in a lot of different things, both as hobbies as well as on a professional level.
He's the most interesting man in the world. You are a busy man. What a lifestyle. Speaking of backs and the tie-in with offshore racing, the back takes a tremendous pounding, especially here in Michigan City on this lake here. You really get jarred. How does that affect the spinal system?
Well, actually, I see a lot of people involved in boating, Stan, that have had spine problems. Some of it's the low back, but the majority of the problems I've seen has been in the cervical spine and the neck, because most of us are strapped into a seat and most of us have some sort of a suspension, or the catamarans float. But the neck takes the real load going side to side and the weight of the helmet. And the big thing is most of us are between age 30 and 55 or 60. So degenerative disease is pretty common in that group, and this just accelerates it. And so we try to find ways to treat it, and sometimes it requires surgery.
And the turns, I imagine the G-forces on the neck as those boats are carving that turn out, it can be tremendous.
Yeah, it's very tremendous. And there's been a couple times, both when I raced with Dan Davies, Brian Forehand, and my son, that even in this small boat, we'll get slapped against the side with the wake we didn't see or into a corner. And one time I was running with Dan Davies, and he says, "Mike, I can't see." I go, "Well, just keep going straight. You'll get your vision before we turn again." And so those things happen, but most of the time they're just transient.
That's pretty wild. I can't see. What was he like semi knocked out?
Yeah, he said everything is blurry, and his head hit the side, but we came out of the corner, we were going straight, and I was running the controls. So he kept saying, "Is this going to come back?" And I says, "Well, if it doesn't before the next corner, we'll shut down. Just keep going straight." So I kind of guided him, kind of like a seeing eye dog, till we got to the next corner, and then he was okay again.
This guy's cool under pressure, huh?
Yeah, he's used to a bigger boat, and that bigger boat, is a little bit smoother. And when we ran in Clearwater last year, it was the first time and the last time he ever wanted to get in this boat.
You've been very successful in your racing career. What would you say would be a personal high water mark out here on the liquid racetrack?
2 times of winning the world championship for SBI is probably the key. The first time I was in the Saratoga Stampede, and we came with a smaller boat, smaller horsepower, and we battled it out in probably one of the best races I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years against the Cat Killer. We were within 10 feet of each other Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and ultimately won. That was a great. And then to build this boat in 30 days out of the glue and come out and do something else was fantastic. And those are the 2 highlights.
Do you have any mentors or perhaps heroes from this sport, maybe even from a bygone era of offshore that you have always looked up to or maybe patterned yourself after?
Well, for me, it's probably clearly been Reggie Fountain, number 1, because Reggie's always helped me. He helped me design all my boats. I have 4 fountains. And then because I'm from Lake of the Ozarks, early on I got a lot of support from Dave Scott and his race team. They live really close, and they've helped me a lot and gave me some great ideas. But I've built some great relationships. Ben Robinson, and now I've been fortunate to always been in the cockpit with Brian Forehand, and it just took me a while for Brian and I to gel, and we're really an inseparable team when it comes to knowing how to navigate the boat.
Now, the teams are important to you, but also I know family is very important to Doc Janssen. Tell us about your family.
Well, my wife and I are both physicians. We met in medical school almost 30 years ago. And I have been fortunate to get both of my children in racing very early. My son started when he was in high school, all the way through 4 years of college, and he's starting medical school next week in St. Louis. And my daughter is playing soccer competitively in college in Seattle, but she's been racing with me for 4 or 5 years, and I think that's great. And one of the big highlights is 2 weeks ago, I was at Lake of the Ozarks on a poker run. I had the biggest boat, 47 foot, 1,200 horsepower. My kids were in this boat, and they beat me. They just were out there by themselves, and it was great for me to realize I didn't have to be in that boat.
He's known on the race circuit as the Doc. He is the man. Watch your back, and probably watch for this boat to be in the winner's circle. Doc Janssen, and watch your back.